I want to tell you about the most powerful mindset hack or mental tactic that I've learned. It's something I first heard about years ago, but I'll admit it took a couple decades of having this psychological strategy repeatedly pounded into my head before I finally clued in and got it and realized just how powerful it was. It's a mindset reframe, a mental tactic that you can use as an entrepreneur to operate at a consistently high level, to significantly reduce your stress, and overall to make a whole lot more money. And you can do this by shifting the way that you see and react to your current situation through the use of a few simple mental exercises that I'm going to be sharing with you throughout this video. And when I first applied this simple mental hack, I was able to literally 10x my output and income in a period of about 6 months. And I was able to teach it to others who were able to do the exact same thing. It's become such a part of my life now that I do it automatically and unconsciously, but I was reminded of just how powerful it is a couple days ago in a very big way. Long story short, I was playing baseball with my kids in the backyard a couple days ago, and when I was running around first base, I felt a sharp pain in my leg, heard this awful snapping sound, and instantly fell and hit the ground pretty hard. What had happened was that I'd ruptured my Achilles tendon, which is unfortunately the largest tendon in the body. So we went to the hospital, they confirmed that my tendon was pretty much destroyed, they put me in a cast, gave me some crutches, and scheduled me for surgery to have it repaired, which I just got done a couple days ago, and I'm now back on the path to recovery, which for an injury like this, sadly is gonna take some time. So here's where things get interesting, and where this mindset hack comes into play, starting with the fact that no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you do, stuff happens, and sometimes that stuff sucks. Life can be hard sometimes. There can be relationship challenges, and health challenges, and money challenges, and sometimes even natural disasters can pop in out of nowhere just to try to ruin your day. But all of this gets compounded and is made significantly worse when you throw business and entrepreneurship into the mix. Because now you're not just responsible for yourself and for your family, but you're also responsible for your business and for your customers and your clients and your employees or team members if you happen to have any. Much of what happens are things you can and should plan for. I'm talking about making sure you have enough money saved for taxes and having good business insurance that keeps your company protected, and of course a solid marketing plan and strategy to ensure your business has a steady and consistent supply of customers coming in the door. But some things you just can't plan for no matter how hard you try. And the secret here is to understand how to identify and leverage 3 different circles: control, influence, and concern. Popularized by Dr. Stephen Covey, a man we're going to be talking about more in just a second, the concept behind these 3 circles involves 3 different spheres. First is the circle of concern. This is the wide range of worries and concerns that you might have about anything and everything. For business, this could be sales or marketing or the political or economic climate. It could be customer behavior or the seasonality of your business, basically anything and everything. Next, though, is the circle of influence. This is a narrowing of that first circle and starts to contain areas that you can actually do something about, either directly or indirectly. For example, if you're having high employee turnover, well, you could set up a better HR program or employee training or something along those lines. Or if you're consistently experiencing high customer turnover or churn, well, you could set up a better onboarding sequence or some kind of better indoctrination with new customers and what they can expect. Then finally, you have the circle of control. This is an even smaller circle that represents all of the things that you can do something directly about. So think of any direct actions you could take, whether hiring or firing or creating or publishing or changing something or something that you have direct responsibility for. The key here is to try to move things inside of your circle of control so that you can have a direct and ideally immediate impact on them. But then also not spend too much time worrying and fretting and freaking out over things that are outside of your circle of control that you really just have no control over. Or to put this another way, taking a few lines from the Serenity Prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This whole Achilles tendon thing that I'm going through right now is the perfect example of things that are in my control and things that are just completely outside of my control. As well as a good reminder of just how quickly things can change and how little your planning and your feelings actually matter when it comes to the events that get dropped on your plate, but how much surprising amount of control you still have. Which leads me to this next mindset hack, E+R=O. I first learned about this formula from Jack Canfield, where he explained the outcome of an event, the O, is based on 2 things. First, the event itself. This is what happened, whether it's a bad health diagnosis, a breakup, someone stealing from you, losing your best client, could be anything. Now, nothing you can do here will change the event. It's done, and it's now in the past. Naval Ravikant, one of the great thinkers of our time, is quick to leave the past behind, stating the obvious but incredibly important fact that no one has ever gone back in time, and no one has ever been able to successfully predict the future in any way that matters. What this means is there's really only one thing you have control over, which is your response to the event, the R in the formula. Your response, therefore, is what determines the outcome of the event. For example, let's say you're driving in your car, happily rolling down the road, minding your own business, staying in your lane, doing the speed limit, and some maniac just cuts you off and forces you to slam on the brakes and swerve to avoid running into them. Now, you do have the option of responding impulsively and without thinking. Anger and frustration and violently lashing out at the other driver for their stupidity and irresponsibility is a common occurrence and often leads to some pretty violent outcomes. But you do have another alternative, and it's something that Stephen Covey calls a paradigm shift that he explains in his story about a man on a subway. In his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey tells the story of being on a New York subway one calm and quiet morning when all of a sudden, a man and his kids just burst onto the subway, and the scene changes from calm and quiet to absolute chaos and complete dysfunction. The kids are yelling, they're jumping all over the place, they're being completely disrespectful, and essentially it's total chaos on this subway train. Finally, Dr. Covey looks over at the man and says, "Sir, your kids are bothering a whole lot of people. Maybe you could control them?" At which point, the man looks up softly and says, "Yeah, I guess you're right. I really should do something about it. We just came from the hospital where their mother just died an hour ago. I don't know what to do, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either." And just like that, there's a paradigm shift. Away from thinking that this guy is a completely terrible father and inconsiderate human being towards feelings of empathy and compassion and feeling the pain and sorrow that he's going through. So for our fictional driving example, the next time somebody rudely cuts you off in traffic, maybe try thinking just for a second that maybe they're on the way to the hospital, or maybe they're rushing home to be with a sick kid. Or maybe 1,000,001 other situations and scenarios that have absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with them and their panic and all of the mess going on in their life right now. Most often, other people's behaviors and actions have very little, if not nothing to do at all with you and everything to do with them and what's going on inside their heads. What's truly powerful about this paradigm shift, though, is how you can create one of your very own in your life and your business without requiring anything from anybody else. Often, all we need is just a second to really back up and imagine how much worse things could be and how this event really isn't as terrible as we thought it was. This is where I like to use something called the 5x5 rule, which is where when something happens to you, you think about, is this really going to bother me in 5 years? And if it won't, and most things won't, well then don't waste more than 5 minutes freaking out or stressing about it. For example, the other day, shortly after returning from surgery, one of my kids knocked one of my favorite cameras off the table and smashed it. My first reaction was naturally frustration, but a quick gut check at a 5x5 rule made me realize that in 5 years, I probably won't even remember having owned this camera. And instead of a camera getting smashed, well, it could have been one of my kids getting hurt, or maybe I fell off my crutches, which has been known to happen. But there's another trick that I use as well that keeps me showing up time and time again, even when I'm tired and beat up and I just don't feel like it. So let me share that with you now. One of the best pieces of entrepreneurial advice I've ever heard came from Seth. You can Google it if you'd like to, but the line I want to highlight is right here. The professional shows up even when she doesn't feel like it. And there's going to be a great many points where you don't feel like it, but you're gonna have to do it anyway. Sure, you can and should try things like habit stacking, which is what James Clear suggests in his book Atomic Habits, or the 5-second rule that Mel Robbins proposes, where you count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you just do it. Or you could break out a little of that old school business motivation and reference some Brian Tracy with Eat That Frog, where the goal is to do your most difficult and most challenging and ugliest task first so you can get it over with. But none of these, at least for me personally, have come even close to the true power of adopting the personality and the identity and the behavior of a professional and someone who gets it done no matter what. Of course, there are still other incredibly powerful psychological hacks and mindset tweaks that you can use, not only to help you become a better entrepreneur, but also to help you make more sales and increase your revenue and attract more customers. And that's why I've linked up a video right here that contains 15 psychological marketing triggers that you can use in your business today. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the video.